What if the place you're standing in right now turns into a death trap the moment disaster strikes? Sounds extreme, right? But it happens every day, and here's why it matters. Most people end up in the worst possible places when crisis hits, not because they're reckless, but because they never saw the danger coming. Stick around because knowing where not to be could literally save your life and protect the people you care about most. Hey everyone! I've spent hours digging into survival guides, expert warnings, and real disaster case studies from across the US. And what I uncovered is seriously alarming. There are 8 everyday places we shop, eat, or drive through, that become ground zero for chaos the second disaster strikes. In this video, I'll break down each one, reveal the hidden dangers, and share shocking facts most people have never heard. From grocery store stampedes to highway overpasses that become death tunnels, you need to know this before the next crisis hits. And before we dive in, drop a comment. Have you noticed food shortages, weird price hikes, or chaotic scenes in public lately? I'm curious what you've seen around you. Let's start with one of the riskiest places to be during any kind of disaster: capital cities or political centers. Now, this might sound surprising. After all, these cities usually have better infrastructure, more resources, and emergency systems in place, but when things go wrong, they're often the first to spiral into chaos. Think about it. State capitals in Washington, D.C. are home to government buildings, important leaders, and political institutions. During disasters, protests, riots, or even targeted attacks can break out fast. People panic, roads get blocked, police presence tightens, and if civil unrest spreads, these areas can quickly turn into high-risk zones. In a crisis, many people rush toward the city center for help, but more people often means more confusion, long waits, or even violence. Emergency services get overwhelmed, communication can break down, and let's be honest, being near political power during a national emergency isn't always a good thing. It can make you a target or trap you in lockdown zones. We've seen this before during natural disasters like hurricanes or political events that sparked massive protests. When the situation heats up, capital cities often feel it first. So if you're planning your disaster safety in US cities, it's smart to avoid the center and stick to the outskirts or rural zones whenever possible. Ask yourself, would you want to be stuck downtown if power cuts, roads close, and panic spreads? 2. Major trade or travel routes. Now, let's talk about another dangerous spot during a disaster: major trade and travel routes. That means airports, highways, train stations, and big shipping routes. These places might seem like a smart way out during an emergency, but they can quickly become nightmares. When panic hits, everyone has the same idea: get out fast. That's when roads clog, airports shut down, and trains stop running. What you thought was your escape route turns into a trap. Traffic stands still, gas stations run dry, people abandon their cars, and in all that chaos, things get tense. Fights can break out, looters may show up, even basic safety goes out the window. This is why experts warn that evacuation routes become unsafe during disaster. Too many people, not enough control, and no way to turn back once you're stuck in it. We've seen it in wildfires, hurricanes, and even civil unrest. Highways packed with cars for miles. Airports full of stranded travelers, trains canceled with no warning. It's not just stressful, it's dangerous, especially if the disaster is moving fast like a wildfire or flash flood. You might think, I'll just take the back roads, but even those get blocked or policed. If you don't have a solid plan and a head start, you're putting yourself at risk. So next time you hear get to the airport or hit the highway, remember it might not be the safe move at all. 3. Supermarkets, malls, and crowded stores. When disaster strikes, supermarkets and shopping malls are some of the first places people rush to, and that's exactly what makes them dangerous. Whether it's a hurricane warning, a gas shortage, or even just a rumor, people panic. And where do they go? Straight to the store. You've probably seen it before: empty shelves, long lines, and people fighting over the last pack of bottled water. Now imagine that times 10. In a full-blown crisis, supermarkets quickly become chaotic. People push, yell, and sometimes even get violent. Stampedes can happen. Security can't control the crowd, and once supplies run low, looting often starts. This isn't just about food either. Pharmacies, clothing stores, electronics outlets, anything people think they might need becomes a target. And in malls, you have large crowds packed into tight spaces, which makes it harder to escape if something goes wrong. The real issue? Most people assume stores are safe. They think, I'll just grab what I need real quick. But once fear kicks in, that store becomes a danger zone. That's why experts constantly warn about the danger at supermarkets in crisis. They're not just places to shop anymore, they become flashpoints for desperation. So if you hear the news and your first thought is to run to the store, pause. Think, is it worth the risk to be inside a crowded building with hundreds of panicked people? 4. Hospitals and medical centers. It might sound strange, but hospitals and medical centers can be one of the worst places to be during a disaster. You'd think they'd be the safest. After all, they have doctors, supplies, and emergency care, but in reality, when disaster hits, hospitals become overwhelmed fast. Think about it. Injured people flood in, scared families show up, people with chronic conditions rush for help. Within hours, there's no space, no beds, and very little control. If you're not critically injured, you might not get treated at all. And then there's the risk of infection. During major disasters like earthquakes or hurricanes, basic hygiene falls apart. When a contagious disease spreads, like a flu outbreak or worse, a packed hospital becomes the last place you want to be. There's also the emotional chaos. People panic, tensions rise, arguments and even violence can break out in waiting rooms. Staff are overworked, systems go offline, and essential medicines run out. Experts often highlight the hospital risk in disaster situations because they know what happens behind the scenes. Once capacity is maxed out, things start falling apart fast. In some cases, hospitals even lock down, turning people away. So unless you truly need emergency care, it's often safer to stay away. During a crisis, a hospital isn't a calm, organized place, it's a pressure cooker. And unless you're already inside and getting help, you may be safer elsewhere. 5. Bridges, tunnels, and large infrastructure. Now let's talk about something most people never think twice about. Bridges, tunnels, and overpasses. They're part of everyday life. We drive over them, under them, and through them without a second thought. But in a disaster, these structures can go from helpful to horrifying in seconds. Imagine this. You're stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic on a bridge during a sudden earthquake. The ground starts shaking, the cars around you freeze, you look up, and the steel above your head begins to twist. This isn't just a movie scene, it's exactly what happened during past disasters in cities like San Francisco, Los Angeles, and even smaller towns. Whole sections of freeway collapsed. Cars were crushed, escape was impossible. Tunnels are even worse. You're underground, lights go out, power cuts, water from flash floods or burst mains starts pouring in, and here's the kicker, you have nowhere to go. Trapped in a narrow tube, surrounded by strangers, with only one or two exits that may already be blocked. It's every claustrophobic nightmare rolled into one. And it's not just nature you have to worry about. During civil unrest or terrorist threats, bridges and tunnels are high priority targets. They're vital infrastructure. And when they're hit, the chaos spreads fast. Emergency crews may not reach you, communications get jammed, and guess what? GPS won't save you when concrete is falling all around. This is why experts always warn bridges are unsafe during earthquake disasters, and so are tunnels, overpasses, and flyovers. These structures weren't built with every kind of crisis in mind. Many are old, some are weak, most will fail under extreme pressure. So the next time disaster strikes, ask yourself, are you under something or trapped inside something that wasn't built to survive it? 6. Areas near military bases or strategic installations. It might seem logical to think that being near a military base during a crisis is a good thing. After all, there's security, trained personnel, and resources, right? But here's the truth. Those areas are some of the most dangerous places you can be when disaster hits. Why? Because in the eyes of the government, the military comes first, and when a major crisis strikes, whether it's a natural disaster, cyber attack, or something worse, those areas become locked down instantly. The public isn't getting in, and if you're already inside or nearby, you might not be getting out. Now imagine being near one of these bases during an escalating national emergency. Roads shut, no warning, no way around, military convoys clog highways, armed guards are posted. And here's what most people forget. Military bases are also prime targets. If it's a war-related event or any kind of strategic strike, those installations are hit first. You're not just near help, you're in the blast radius. During the Cold War, and even in more recent global tensions, military analysts have warned that bases across the U.S. could be among the first to face direct threats. That includes missile silos, radar stations, communication hubs, and other high-priority defense locations. Living or traveling nearby might seem harmless, until you're stuck near one when everything goes dark. In some cases, people near bases have been evacuated without explanation or told to shelter in place for days, with no access to supplies, internet, or outside news. So while military zones may feel safe on a normal day, in a crisis, they can flip in an instant. And when they do, you're not a civilian anymore. You're just in the way. 7. Tornado overpasses and highway overpasses. This one is a real shocker, and sadly a deadly myth that still gets people killed. Taking shelter under a highway overpass during a tornado. It seems logical, right? You're on the road, a funnel cloud appears in the distance, and you spot an overpass. Shelter, shade, protection, right? Wrong. Dead wrong. Overpasses are one of the most dangerous places to be during a tornado, and here's why. They don't block wind, they actually intensify it. When high-speed winds pass through the narrow space under an overpass, they accelerate like air through a wind tunnel. That means flying debris, bricks, tree limbs, even pieces of metal, come at you faster, harder, and deadlier. People who have sheltered under overpasses during past tornadoes were literally blown out from under them. Others were struck by debris with fatal force. In the 1999 Oklahoma tornado outbreak, one of the deadliest in U.S. history, this very myth cost lives. Videos of survivors clinging to overpass beams gave others a false sense of security. But what they don't show is the people who didn't make it. The overpass tornado myth continues because it feels like the right move in the moment. But experts, including the National Weather Service and FEMA, have repeated it over and over again. Do not take cover under an overpass. If you're in your car during a tornado, your best chance is getting out and lying flat in a low ditch, away from vehicles and power lines. Yes, it sounds scary, but it's far safer than hiding under a concrete trap that could turn into a wind-powered blender. So next time you're driving and that sky turns black, remember, that overpass might look like safety, but it's a trap in disguise. 8. Areas prone to food or water shortages. We usually think of danger during a disaster as something loud, fast, and violent, like a tornado or earthquake. But what if I told you that one of the most dangerous places to be during a crisis is somewhere quiet, remote, and running out of food and water? Let's talk about rural areas, food deserts, and drought-hit towns. The places where life already runs on thin supply lines, and during a major disaster, these zones become food shortage conflict zones in crisis, and they unravel fast. Now, picture this. You live 20 miles outside the nearest city. There's one small store in town, maybe a gas station, and if you want fresh produce or bottled water, you have to drive. Then, the trucks stop coming. Maybe it's a hurricane, a grid failure, fuel rationing, or something even bigger like a cyber attack. Shelves empty in a day, water pressure drops, and the power goes out. Now what? Here's the scary truth. You're not just dealing with inconvenience, you're now in a resource war zone, and most people around you don't even know it yet. At first, it's subtle. People start buying more than they need. Store owners raise prices, lines form before the store opens. But by day 3 or 4, fights break out, people start guarding their supplies, neighbors stop trusting each other, and you realize you're running out of time. There's a reason emergency planners classify these areas as high risk, because when people can't feed their kids or find clean water, panic sets in, and panic turns to action. Theft, violence, roadblocks. Some rural towns have seen neighbors robbing each other's water tanks or looting local farms in the middle of the night, not because they're bad people, but because they're desperate. And here's the catch. Help doesn't come quickly. These areas aren't priority zones. Emergency responders focus on dense cities first. FEMA's resources are stretched. And with damaged roads, poor communication, and no gas stations working, you can't even leave. You're stuck. Even worse, some of these places were already in trouble before the disaster. The USDA reports that millions of Americans live in what's called low-access food areas, neighborhoods or towns where the nearest supermarket is more than 10 miles away. That might not sound like much until your car doesn't start and gas is $12,000 a gallon if you can find it. So what can you do if you're in one of these zones? Stock up in advance, have your own water source if you can, build relationships with local farmers, co-ops, or people who grow their own food, and most importantly, don't wait until the last minute. Because once panic spreads, it's not just about what's in your pantry anymore, it's about who's watching and how far they're willing to go to take it. So again, ask yourself, if the power went out tomorrow and the trucks stopped rolling, would you survive 10 days where you live? Would your neighbors? So now you know, these aren't just places you pass through every day. In a disaster, they can turn into the worst places to be. Let's quickly recap the 8 danger zones. Capital cities and political centers, where chaos, protests, and lockdowns erupt first, major travel routes like highways, airports, and rail lines, which turn into panic-filled traps. Supermarkets and malls, hot zones for looting and crowd panic. Hospitals and medical centers, where systems collapse under pressure. Bridges, tunnels, and overpasses, which can trap or collapse without warning. Military bases or strategic sites, highly restricted and high target areas. Highway overpasses during tornadoes. Deadly wind funnels, not shelter. Rural zones facing food and water shortages. The slow, silent breakdown that turns neighbors into rivals. Disasters don't give warnings. They don't wait for you to be ready. And most people, they realize too late that where you are when it all begins can decide if you make it out alive. So here's what I want you to do right now. Hit that like button if this opened your eyes. Drop a comment. Have you ever been stuck in a dangerous situation like one of these? Or are you already seeing signs, price hikes, supply issues, strange shortages? Let's talk about it below. And if you want more real talk about disaster survival, prepping smart, and protecting your family, hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Because survival isn't about fear, it's about being ready. And now you're one step ahead.